Persistent rain pushing into North Wales, the North Midlands, as well as Cornwall later in the day. That rain then spreads across the country on Monday, turning to showers later.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Pusey in the GB newsroom. Tory leadership hopefuls Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak have set out their vision for the country at another Conservative hustings. Hosted by Alistair Stewart in Manchester, both candidates were attempting to convince those living in the northwest of England that they should be the next Prime Minister. The former Chancellor repeated his claim that he was the most northern Tory Chancellor the UK had had in 70 years. Meanwhile, the Foreign Secretary said there should be league tables for police forces. Ms Truss also said the reorganisation of the NHS was not the way to fix long waiting lists and problems with ambulances.
There are huge problems with delivery. There are long waiting lists, there are problems with ambulances. It's very hard to get a GP appointment or a dentist appointment. But I don't believe the way to fix that is yet another reorganisation of the NHS. We've been through that before, and all that seems to happen every time there's a reorganisation is we get more levels of management. So what we need to do is actually empower the doctors and nurses on the front line, make sure they are able to deal with the issues the patients are raising.
Truss speaking there. Meanwhile, Mr Sunak emphasised that if he were Prime Minister, one priority would be to get radical reform of the NHS.
15 million missed appointments in the NHS, not just at GP surgeries, but at hospitals too. Now, not only does that not value our doctors, it also deprives people of the care that they urgently need. So if we can get tough on missed appointments, then that's not about making money. What this is about is changing behaviour in this country. But if we're not prepared to get radical on the NHS, get efficiency out of it, we will never reform it, and I will never cut your taxes, and that's what I want to do as Prime Minister.
Meanwhile, Michael Gove has become the latest MP to back Mr Sunak. Writing in The Times, he accused Ms Truss of taking a holiday from reality over her plans to cut tax to ease the rising cost of living. The former Cabinet Minister also signalled he would not be returning to frontline politics, saying it was a privilege to spend 11 years in the Cabinet. A member of the so-called Islamic State terror cell known as the Beatles has been jailed for life after being convicted for his role in the murder of American hostages. El Shafi El Sheikh, who grew up in London, was one of a gang of 4 Islamist militants branded the Beatles due to their British accents. He was given a life sentence for each of the 8 counts he was convicted of in April. More travel disruption is expected tomorrow as union members from 18 train companies walk out. Only 20% of the rail network is said to be running, with some parts of the country not having trains at all. Today has seen little to no services running on the London Tube, while most buses across west and southwest of the capital have also been cancelled. TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to headliners.
I'm Josh Howie, and I've got two funny and insightful mates with me to go through tomorrow's newspapers. Hello, Louis Schaefer and Nick Dixon.
Yay.
Yay. The big boys are in the house. Right, let's take a look at tomorrow's newspapers before we get straight into it. First of all, we're going to kick off with the Daily Mail. They have led with NHS blows 1 million on woke groups for staff. Well, we knew that. I just didn't know it was 1 million. Wow. Sunday, well, we've got the Daily Telegraph. Avoid A&E, says NHS, as winter crisis bites early. The Guardian leads with NHS cannot be put on a pedestal. Trust. Do we trust trust? Let's see. Saturday's Mirror has Fergie's case for the defence. Former boss says Giggs never lost temper as X names 6 of Star's alleged lovers. Wow, that's quite a detailed phone book he had on him. Now, we've got the Times. Truss plans are holiday from reality, says Gove. Well, he's sticking with who he's backed then, fair enough. And Saturday's Express has migrant crisis to last at least 5 more years. I don't know where they're getting 5 more years. Probably going to go on forever. And finally, we've got Saturday Sun has exclusive Tompkinson court rap. Telly cop nicked for GBH. Actually, wait a minute. One more. The Daily Star. Fergie time. He had a lot of girlfriends and lady friends and a fantastic, wonderful temperament. What a great friend he is. GB News making the news again with Saturday's Mirror reporting on Sunak's super cool intro video, Nick.
Yes, millionaire Rishi Sunak billed himself as underdog in cringeworthy video at Tory hustings. That's in the Mirror. And they basically copied my tweet. I got there first. I said, Rishi just had a super cringe intro about him being the underdog, even though he was the initial favourite and frontrunner. You're not the underdog, bro. You're just losing. And I can't really improve upon what I said there, because the one thing I missed out is that he's twice as rich as the Queen. But he had this ridiculous intro video of like a Ray Winston sort of voice going, Britain loves an underdog. Yeah. Are we going to play it?
We are. Well, let's play it. Somehow we have access to this video from GB
Oh, nice.
They kindly lent it to us.
Say beware the underdog, because an underdog has got nothing to lose. An underdog fights for every inch. They work harder, stay longer, think smarter. Underdogs don't give up. They'll do the difficult things, and they never ever get complacent. So, right, I'm off if you like. Sit back and dismiss them. But if there's one thing I know to be true, it's that Britain loves an underdog.
No more, please, I beg you.
The only time Rishi would hear someone with that accent is if it was his butler, let's be very real. And there's a good bit, the only good bit is at the end where he has a bazooka, but it kind of looks like he's Michael Douglas in Falling Down. He's just absolutely lost it, and he's got the bazooka. But yeah,
Trust, this is for you.
Exactly, to me it just shows he's sort of lost his identity, hasn't he, Rishi, on this campaign? He's like, I'm the sensible one, I'm sort of, low spending, and he's got this Blairite vibe, but then because he's losing, he's tried to change and go like anti-woke, like those stupid lefties who are woke, and now he's gone full Ray Winston, but I think it's not him. I think it damages him in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis, what do you think? Can he catch up?
No, he can't catch up. When you do something like that, you know who he reminds me of? Michael Dukakis, if you remember, riding around on a tank in 1980. This is no one remembers.
Yeah, but of course, if American politics.
80s American politics.
Well, you know what? It works both ways. I mean, didn't what's his name steal from Michael Kinnock? Biden steal from
Neil Kinnock.
Neil Kinnock, right? Neil, whatever. One of the
Michael might have won.
Right, and he stole it, and this guy is stealing. He was, I don't know if you remember Michael Dukakis, but he was a total.
We all do.
Yeah. I mean, he was a loser. I mean, not a loser. Just Reagan was an amazing winner.
I mean, there was another gaffe, wasn't there, where he said something about, look, don't do the underdog like Southampton. I'm hoping that we're going to beat you like this weekend. And actually, then he's not playing Man United until the end of the month.
He said I'm going to be unpopular for staying here, starting by beating United this weekend. Man United play Liverpool on Monday, so it's a big game for us that we're worried about. So completely wrong.
He just cannot get it right, can he?
Because he's not being himself. Be yourself, Rishi. You're a really rich, slick guy who no one really trusts. Be that guy.
Fair enough. OK, Saturday's Times. And it looks like all those Corbynites have been busy, Lewis.
Well, I mean, it's typical of these people. As the Times is saying that the guy who's head of the RMT union, the railroad union, he's on stage, right? He's saying that enough is enough manifesto, that they have demand for a national minimum wage, a return to pre-April energy price caps, nationalization of energy companies. I mean, you'd think these people were socialists with the kind of things that they're asking for. Nice. And what they say is, we refuse to be poor.
How's that working out for you, Nick?
Well, I've refused, but the world has yet to catch up. I mean... And that's the thing. I mean, a lot of the train drivers are quite well paid. I know the auxiliary workers are not as well paid, and it's also about them. I understand that. My problem is putting up wages causes this wage price spiral, doesn't it? And this idea of the minimum wage raising to £15 an hour, that enough is enough are asking for. The problem with that is it's kind of been proved that all it does is stop people employing people, and then they just don't get employed at all. Or if the companies have to pay it, then they struggle to survive. So that's the problem with the minimum wage. And he says the working class are back. Is this really the working class? Some of them might be. Some of them are kind of, I suspect, a sort of Metro-lib Labour types, but I hate to be pedantic.
Zara Sultana on her 80k a year.
Yeah, the working class. Yeah, she probably did that voice for Rishi on the underdog thing. But it's, so I'm a bit sceptical about some of it. It is true that wages have declined in general over, about 12 years or whatever. And it's also true that we do have the problem of the Pareto distribution that ends up with the 1%. We always end up with the 1%. No one's figured out how to solve it. So there is
That's not what the Pareto distribution is.
That is what it is.
It's an 80.
No, that's the Pareto principle. The original mathematical Pareto distribution is an economic thing.
I'm going to have to go on with Nick on this.
Yeah.
Not because I know for a fact, just because I'm just going to choose him over you.
Because he sounded so authoritative.
They adapted the Pareto principle to the Pareto for that 80-20 thing as it applies. But the original Pareto distribution means an uneven mathematical distribution.
We've just lost 20,000 viewers there.
But Simon Evans is at home loving it. So, so that's my problem. And my other problem with it is, I see their point. They want to get paid more, but they're saying it's for the workers. But it immiserates the other workers, which is everyone else who has to get the tube or get the train, and then their days are ruined, and it massively damages the economy. So that's my problem with it.
Yeah, I mean there are some of these things that seem great. Yeah, build 100,000 council homes, reversing national insurance, and that's even what Liz Truss is saying anyway. But I wonder if there's a sort of self-satisfied smugness of look, we've got 400,000 people have signed up and whatever. And it's but is that enough to really make the change? They thought that having Labour membership at its highest, 500,000 a few years ago, that meant that Labour was definitely going in and Corbyn was going all the way. It was no, that's still a very small portion of the country. Is it enough to actually win people over?
You know what? I think you're ridiculous because this whole plan is complete garbage. To build and I know about council houses because in my borough they're building council housing and it's destroying communities. 100,000 council housing is not enough. Do you want Southwark Council, for example, to build housing when they can't even maintain the housing that they have and they're destroying housing as well?
You're saying it's destroying communities, but they're not building enough.
Look, you know what?
No,
I follow Lewis on Facebook, so all I get all day a message from you about Southwark Council. We're going to move on now to Saturday's Guardian. I don't want to...
I was enjoying that.
I know, but I just don't want our viewers to have
the last two viewers.
The
ones we didn't lose with Pareto distribution are going to go from Southwark Council.
All day on Facebook is Lewis's Southwark Council sort of diatribes and photos of his food.
Josh, unfollow.
I love him too much.
I'm at war with Southwark Council.
I know. Saturday's Guardian. And is there a reason why Liz Truss doesn't want people marking her homework, Nick?
Yes, Liz Truss accused of delaying human rights record report over criticism of Rwanda. So the accusation from The Guardian is that it's the most delayed review since the whole process was launched by Robin Cook 21 years ago. And they're saying that, that she's trying to quash criticism of Rwanda by not releasing this now. And, because that's the policy she's backed us. But it's also presumably because she's leader and she doesn't want anything messing it up. Now, they say here maybe she's focused on the leadership race. Surely it's that she doesn't want anything bad coming out at all while she's trying to win. Or it could just be conjecture from The Guardian. There is always that chance.
Do you think so?
Well, yeah, they're looking for anything, aren't they, to have a proper...
No, so it sort of seems like she's doubled... I also heard she's kind of doubled down on the Rwanda policy. Do you think that's a good idea for her, sort of appeal to the core voters?
Well, I think it's a brilliant idea. You know, if you're going to just deal with it, just ship it somewhere else. Ship the problem out of the country.
That's what you did with your kids, right?
You know what? I think they ship them themselves.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. That was a horrible thing to say.
Sorry about that, mate.
We were having such a good time until you said that.
I take it. Let me rewind back. I'm sorry, I don't want to start.
No, I find
I
this,
didn't listen.
I don't think she's mentioning it because she's got an election campaign coming up, and it's best not thinking about it. She's in.
Another one.
She's got an election coming up. Don't be so.
I'm sorry. You're right. That was my fault.
Lots of bickering here.
This show was so good up until what he said.
Oh, it was terrible.
My God,
I didn't listen to it.
So good, and now I've made you cry, and I feel very bad about it. I feel very guilty. I'm sorry. Saturday's Independent. Let's finish this section and bring it back up to that peak. And maybe it's time for all those MPs to come home, Lewis.
Yeah, you know what it is. It's like what they want to do is they want to get back into Parliament. These people barely work as it is, and they want to get back to work to give out more money. That's what it is. It's to raise the cap of this, to give them more money for that, and that's what this is all about. This is what Labour is totally behind, and this is what the Conservatives are also trying to promote, is spending more money, which is what caused inflation in the first place.
Nick, do you agree with anything in Labour's plan before the Tories steal it?
Oh, how satirical of you. It felt like a loaded question, that, Josh, so I refuse to answer it. But I will say that this is Thagum Debonair, which is an amazing name. Yeah. She actually changed the surname. It's brilliant. Now, she said that her claim is that, the Tories need to get back and sort this. And she said the Prime Minister is perfectly capable of opening his email. With Boris, you actually question that, don't you? Like, is he actually capable? Does he have someone that can do that for him? But, yeah, can Boris open his emails? We're not sure. But... Rishi's criticised this price cap thing as a blunt instrument because he says you end up giving money to people who don't actually need it. So you want to do it more subtly and things through tax and all that. So I understand that. It's basically another chance for Labour to hammer Tories for their absence, this zombie government thing.
Go Labour!
Yeah, because I understand because the Tories are not there. They're making hay while the sun shines on Boris on one of his holidays.
Also, Starmer had his holiday. He got his tan. He came back. He's like, you know what? Everyone else, you should all come back from holiday.
Yeah. Whereas Boris is having a second holiday.
Yeah.
It's Boris's life is going to be just endless holidays from now on.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? We're going to squeeze one more story in onto Saturday's Express. And is this how all of your parties end, Nick, with a drug test?
Yes. You know me so well, Just. Finland's PM takes drug test after party hard leader filmed on Wild Night Out. So you probably saw this. This was Sanna Marin, the Finnish Prime Minister, and she was out kind of partying away, and there was rumours that there was drugs involved because someone shouted about flour, which is what they call cocaine.
She just seemed to be having a good time as well.
To me, she seemed more like just on a typical night out having a good time. The question is, firstly, why get yourself on camera if you're the Prime Minister? She's on loads of videos going, hey, you wouldn't do that. But OK, she's done that. The other thing is, yes, it's just a typical night out that anyone would have. But do you want that from your leaders? Do you want them sort of out there? I mean, Michael Gove was caught in a nightclub, which was a bit cringy as well. This was a bit even more cringy because she was in all kinds of... Well, she was dancing around in a kind of silly way. But the problem is, do you want that from your leader? I want politicians to be sort of, oldish men who drink bourbon in the middle of the day, and that's all they do. You don't really want to see them out partying. I don't, anyway.
Well, that's exactly why I think Starmer will make such a good PM.
Yeah, maybe.
But you know what? It's funny that what you said, you called it a typical night out that anyone would have. Yes, in Britain or America, you could see anyone having that good a time, but you don't understand Finland. They have an incredible reputation for being dour. Is that the word?
Dour.
Yeah.
Of being completely grumpy. And in America, in the 1970s, they did a whole episode showing how miserable you can look it up, 60 Minutes, Finland, how miserable the Finnish people are. And that's why they thought she's having a good time. She must be on drugs.
Well, the thing is that she has agreed, she's now taken a drug test, which... I feel a bit uneasy about that. It feels like she's sort of given into intimidation. Yeah. Someone said, it would be wise if you did it. And I feel that's not necessarily a good look for a Prime Minister.
Notice when Michael Gove was caught dancing in the nightclub, they didn't bother making him take a drug test because everyone knew the result.
Also with his interview on television the next morning.
Calm down.
Is there an equivalent in the UK? I was thinking maybe forcing Boris to get like a paternity test.
Yeah, well, almost everything Boris has done feels like the equivalent, doesn't it, to this? That's the thing. It's the kind. Can you really complain about? I didn't like this, but then again, our Prime Minister has done worse, hasn't he? So.
It's not. I don't think it's an anti-woman thing. I think basically she was pro-COVID testing, lockdown, everything. And I think that there's a lot of negativity towards. This is what I'm guessing.
Well, it's also the hypocrisy from the earlier incident with her in the nightclub and being without a phone.
There is something cringe about hip young leaders out partying who are locking you down. It's a bit Jacinda Ardern as well.
Well, I'm just wondering. I mean, I sort of hesitate to say it, but she looks like a very beautiful woman, and I wonder how much that is playing into her being put on all of these covers. You know, if it was like some 35-year-old
like
Finnish
Boris
guy who looked like me, I don't think somehow that I'd be making it onto the cover.
If I'd have put a bet on, I'd have sworn the misogyny tonight was going to come from me or Lewis, but it's come from Josh.
Okay,
no one saw it coming. She's just a pin-up model, is what you're saying.
Which is why she was elected. Is that what you're saying?
Let me use this interval to self-reflect and
educate yourself.
Educate myself to get back to groupthink.
Listen and learn.
Thank you. That's all for part one. Coming up in part two, we've got the Dobbers making a comeback, Kushti prisons, and another toxic male to add to our little group. See you in two.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, and these two free thinkers are Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon. Let's crack on.
Yeah.
Saturday's Daily Mail brings us a story of a toxic influencer being banned. Don't worry, Nick's still on social media. Hey, see what I did there? Why don't you explain more, mate?
Yeah, so controversial British ex-Big Brother influencer Andrew Tate is banned from Facebook and Instagram for violating policies. So if you don't know Andrew Tate, he's a former world champion kickboxer. Now he's a very popular guy on social media. He has a lot of opinions. He's quite funny.
11 billion views.
Yeah, it's incredible. He's blowing up. I've been following him for years, but he's suddenly blowing up. And he's in trouble because he's a bit anti-PC. He says funny things. There's irony. There's context. And this is a classic case of the mainstream media encountering internet culture. It happened to Carl Benjamin a few years ago. Internet culture is edgy and funny and controversial. The mainstream media gets hold of it and say, oh, we don't like this guy. But Tate's very popular online. He's doing Twitch streams with young people who are very popular on
other misogynists. And...
He was on Tom Segura's show, mainstream US comic, who started off by mocking him, but then eventually was won round, had him on his show. And he's very funny. His dad was a chess champion. He's a very interesting guy. And, you know, the media, of course, is trying to stitch him up and call him misogynist. The one criticism I've heard of him that maybe has something to it is that he maybe exploits young men because he has these online courses and they buy them, and maybe they're hoping to get his lifestyle because he drives around in supercars and, like, lives this crazy lifestyle. But he's actually a very funny guy with interesting opinions.
But it seems from that article that the people he's also exploiting are young women. In terms of, like, didn't he make a lot of money going out to Romania and this whole sex scandal?
The webcam thing. Well, yeah, he ran a webcam business, but
I'm looking forward to hearing you defend this. Your best online buddy here.
I know, it's kind of a weird one for me, because morally you think, well, can you defend it? But in terms of exploitation, I don't think it was, because they were making loads of money off it.
The police were involved.
No, that was later. That was another incident.
Seems like a great guy, Nick.
There's a lot of incidents.
That mainstream media damning him.
You've got to watch him. It's kind of like, well, it's like with Alex Jones. If you watch him over a number of years and you get a sense of the irony and where he's serious and where he's being funny.
Wow, you have doubled down with Alex Jones here.
Well, yeah, because it's the same sort of thing. It's me defending controversial people, but you shouldn't just trust what the mainstream media says about him. You should go and see what they're all about. He's an intelligent guy. He's very funny, and he says some on-the-edge things.
You know what? That's the same thing that they always say. They always say, I was just kidding. He's just kidding. He wasn't kidding. He's not kidding. And that's the problem. He's not kidding. He's not kidding. And the powers that be know he's not kidding. And he flew too close to the sun, and that's why they brought him down. And for you to defend him just because he's kidding, I don't agree with...
You said off air you liked it.
I did, but I was basically...
You said you weren't going to throw me under the bus.
I'm basically disgusted by your liking him a bit too much. Is that I personally think the guy's funny, but I also think he obviously is saying things that cannot be said today that he means that have truth to them. So it's very easy for us to sit here and say, you know what, he's just kidding, but he's not just kidding.
Well, obviously, we had the whole Jerry Sadowitz thing happen in the last week up in Edinburgh. Now, he's a comedian saying the unsayable, but that's the point. The context there couldn't be clearer. I think the problem with this online stuff is he a guy just making money who's quite a funny bloke, or is this stuff that he actually believes in? How and to what level? When the audience go to see Jerry Sadowitz, they have entered that contract that it's an audience. In this idea, they're buying into him as a person. So do those ideas go across?
Well, I will say, can I interrupt you for a second? I will say both. As a comedian, like Jerry Sadowitz or Andrew Tate, it's funny stuff. But also, even if it's not funny, even if it is what he believes in, which I, of course, do not believe any of it, is that it has to be respected and shouldn't be taken off the air just because people don't like to hear it.
If you're watching TikTok, you're not in a court of law, you're not in an Oxford lecture, you're watching for entertainment. So it's the same thing, it's the same principle. A lot of it is entertainment, isn't it? It's on YouTube, it's on TikTok. It's entertainment, ultimately.
Well, I just argue there'd be slightly blurred lines here. Anyway, look, that was a good debate. Let's move on to the next one. Sticking with tomorrow's mail, and maybe if you're under 30, you're better off buying an avocado, Nick.
Yeah, number of under 30 spending more than 30% of their salary on rent hits a 5-year high, with Rotherham, Walsall, Bolton, strangely, and London among the least affordable areas for young people to live. So 4 in 10 people under 30 are spending more than 30% of their pay on rent. And I just checked mine. I'm spending over 36% of mine, and I ain't under 30, bro. So even worse for me.
Yours is that you have like a buy thing, don't you? It's like
no, but I rent.
Mortgage. You rent from the government, but it's your...
I own a small percentage, but I rent.
Okay.
Yeah, I pay rent every month, so and it's much more than this. So yeah, it's a big problem. I mean, and the only thing I disagreed with is that the guy said that the under 30s are paying it because they're at peak earning power. I think surely peak earning power is a little later. But he does say, this is Jonathan Rowland, of property expert with House Buy Fast. He says a chronic lack of supply, as in lack of homes on the market, which urgently needs to be addressed by ministers with imaginative and far-reaching ideas. Maybe freezing immigration, we could do that. In many cases... well, that's imaginative. Well, think about it. You could freeze it just briefly.
You need to open a TikTok account right now.
That's not even bad, is it? There's people of all races in this country. Just freeze it.
I'd say house
it's not
building
racist.
is a big problem, but then
there's that.
Set you off.
No, that's wrong too, house building. But is it wrong for me to agree with them? Because if it's wrong, then I won't agree.
Can I just add one last thing that just amused me? He says, on a more optimistic note, Mr. Rowland suggested we might currently be at peak craziness and it's going to settle down by winter and spring next year. Why? Because the cost of living crisis, people won't be able to afford as much rent and landlords will clock on. So the good news is you'll be so poor you can't afford your rent and landlords will have to do something.
Can I just say 30% is not really that much? I think in New York it's like 50% in places in America.
Which is where you moved from, isn't it?
It's a bit cheaper here. But the problem is you know how to lower people's rent. Is just have people move in together.
So get married.
Get married. But obviously, people don't want to get married nowadays for reasons which are quite extreme.
If they follow you on Facebook.
Yeah, well, you'll see what there's no gain for a woman to get married, for a man to get married, and for a woman to get married, he's not going to. No woman would marry a guy who can't afford to pay the rent.
Well, that's it, and that's the chicken and egg thing about you're saying move in and get married, but as it says here, it's putting people off having children, taking further education, starting their own businesses because they can't even pay the rent.
Yeah.
So it is a huge problem.
So women could move in with a guy and pay half the amount of rent, and in theory be happy, but they would not be happy living with a guy who cannot pay the full amount.
I knew you'd get it around to being women's fault.
It's good to hear you talking from experience. Saturday's independent now, and due to the hosepipe ban, the only grass is those grassing on their neighbours, Lewis.
Yeah, this is so typically British, is that people have started to call 999, which is the number here for emergencies.
Thank you for informing us.
Well, I mean, I know...
You on GB News, like, it's 999, guys.
Is this how all your gigs, is what you do in your gigs?
No,
hey, guys, have you heard of 999?
I think you know...
It's like 911.
You forget, Josh, that I am an international star. And the reason I'm on this show...
I do not forget that.
Because of my
You
accent.
forget you're in England. That's what's happening.
You know what? Only to be able to sleep at night.
Okay.
Is I forget that I'm in England.
Okay.
Anyway, number one, the problem, we've had problems with rain, which we always do in England. The reason we have problems with rain, because it only rains 25 inches a year of rain in the southeast of Britain. Did you know this? In London, 25 inches. How many inches of rain in I'll ask Nick, maybe you will know, Josh, you probably know, is how many inches of rain does it normally rain in New York?
Oh, my gosh.
A good 30.
No, 60.
48 inches.
Oh.
48 inches, so it's basically twice as much rain.
I always overestimate.
Yeah, London's
inches.
very dry. People don't realise London's very dry. I came from the north, from the lakes. This is dry.
Anyway, the police, can I just tell my joke?
No, it's boring.
My joke here. No.
Okay, here
The
we go.
police, because I actually wrote a joke for this.
Build up. It builds up.
Lewis is going to do a joke, everyone.
Where our numbers peak.
This is
go.
his last appearance anyway.
The police actually complained about people calling 911 because it took them 999.
Try to start again. The NYPD complained.
So excited to have a joke.
The feds. What did the feds do?
They complained.
The narcs.
They complained that people were wasting the police's time. That the police should be spent investigating funny tweets and Facebook posts.
Hey, come on. Okay, we got that. That was good.
got
I like
there.
that. Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
Was it?
No, it was good. It was good. Now, Nick, I wanted to ask you: do you think that lockdown emboldened a certain kind of nosy, sticking your nose in neighbour, annoying person?
Absolutely. This country is interesting because it's half sort of freedom-loving and sort of up yours kind of thing. We're going to do Brexit because we fancy it kind of thing. And then it's half curtain twitcher. And I think the divide may well be class, because whenever I speak to people who are sort of more in the working class, though, middle class, they're sort of like, yeah, lockdown was nonsense, they hate masks. When I speak to people of the professional classes in Crouch End and places like that in North London, they're more of the curtain twitcher
When you speak
type.
to me, is that what you're telling?
Well, I want to say, Josh...
You were looking at me very intently when you were saying that.
Because you and me, Josh, understand what these people are like, is what I was going for.
Yeah.
But is that correct? We're sort of divided between those two.
I mean, I do feel that division was never more apparent than during lockdown. When you had it and you had people... And the thing that wound me up most was, I live in a flat, 5 kids, and we'd go out in our 1 hour allotted time, and then I'd see things of people on Twitter and stuff like that, people I knew with gardens going, look at these people sitting on a bench. I'm like, well, what are you at? You got a massive garden.
Right.
That really would wind
There were even
me
some people very much who I like who suddenly was saying, like, why are people out in the parks tanning? I'm like, get lost. I'm not saying it's all Remainers, by the way. I want to edit that. 90% of them, but...
I disagree with what you're saying.
Thank you.
I agree with part of it, which is that English people have an incredible sense of disrespect for authority. They do. But it also comes from a place of fairness, which is if it's being the fairness is being broken, like you say, like your situation where it's not fair that you can't go.
Great. On to Saturday's Times. And Nick, when you go to prison, does this sound like your kind of place?
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, this is how...
Just from, social media stuff.
Yeah, well, yes, it'll be a tweet, won't it? How to rehabilitate a prison, female staff, and an emphasis on well-being, apparently. This is HMP Doncaster, who 3 years ago, there were 130 incidents a month of self-harm in a prison population of 1,100, more than twice the national average. Number of prisoners classed as a suicide risk was 60. They made some changes, and they got a fall of 3/4 in these self-harm incidents, and risk of suicide went down to single figures. And they've cited a number of things, like a 4-day week where staff work longer shifts, but they only work 4 days. They have these insiders who are actually inmates that wear yellow shirts, and they help out the other prisoners, and they even think they're staff because they're sort of so helpful. That seems like a decent idea. They say more female staff brings greater emotional intelligence, so women suddenly exist again and are different from men again. Obviously, that's banned. But one of the ideas and they had this thing of an offence-neutral policy where you don't mention what you're convicted of. Fair enough. The only place where it got too liberal for me
yeah, I know.
is when it said...
Was it the drag queens reading to the kids in the library?
There was that. Okay. And then it said, it said sex offenders are not segregated, which is unusual. And it said, we met several as we walked around the prison with a couple of sex offenders painting the walls of a games room with their favourite Disney characters. And I literally had to turn back and check that this wasn't The Guardian. This is The Times. Like, yeah, the sex workers painting their Disney... That's where I go.
That's not good training. You don't want those guys to be too good at sort of painting Disney.
Right. Yeah. Weirdly, it's them, isn't it? But this is it. This is where it gets too sort of Norwegian, Sweden, sort of too liberal for me. And I go, you're saying it works, but there's something a bit like, where's the punishment element? You know what I mean? And our problem with prisons, anyway, our prisons are over full, but we keep people in about 3 weeks because we've got not enough space. So we put more...
If they're lucky to be in 3 weeks.
Yeah, we put more people in prison than most countries, but we don't keep them in there. What we should do is punish smaller crimes properly, patrol the streets with police, try and stop things earlier, but we don't do that. So.
How about death penalties? You don't have to have problems with prison.
Yeah.
And Lewis there, giving us the solution, the ultimate solution.
But I did tell a joke in the earlier segment.
Yeah, very good. Let's finish this section with Saturday's Times. And it's apparently impossible to be both Scottish and British. It's a shame that Leo's not here. Feel like channeling him, Lewis?
Yeah, because I have thought about this, because my kids are half Scottish, and the problem is that Scotland is a foreign country that Britain tried to pretend that. England tried to pretend. Britain is a construct of the English people to try to become a greater...
But every country is a construct.
Yes, but some constructs are just within a certain geographic area, and that becomes coherent. Like Russia. Russia became the Soviet Union.
Now it's becoming Ukraine, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, it's like Ukraine said, well, wait a second, we're not part of Russia. Right? Or like Latvia, Lithuania, they said, we're not part of Russia. Yeah. We're not part of the Soviet Union anymore. And so no matter how much force they use, and anyway, the Scottish people are the most ornery group of people. If you lived basically on a rock that rained 24 hours.
Oh my gosh, we're going about your ex-wife.
So what's the story?
Yes, exactly. Would you not mention her?
Yeah, Nick, why don't you tell us the story?
I'll tell what the story is, just for a novelty. Let's do what the show is for a bit.
They can read their own news things.
You're right. But, you know...
They want some help, mate.
This
they
article...
don't want to read this stuff. They want us to read it for
This
them.
article had the word concatenation.
Yeah, concatenation.
Have you ever used that word before?
I've used it, but I'm very smart.
Have you ever used that word before? Concatenation? No. And the two of us are Jews.
It's just a series of things linked together. That's all it means. This comes from Murray Pittock.
But we've never heard that
this comes from Murray Pittock, which is, by the way, the most Scottish name of all time. You know, Murray as a surname is pretty Scottish. As a first name, it's very, very
Murray
Scottish.
Pittock.
Exactly.
Murray Pittock.
And he did he's author of Scotland, the Global History. And the question is, can you be Scottish anymore? Can you be British, or do you identify as Scottish? And it is sad that it's become this thing where, you know, the nationalism has become so big. But then again, why shouldn't you be able to identify as Scottish? I always thought I was English. I was always English growing up. Then sometime in the 90s, we were suddenly British. I never really bought into that. Weirdly, you're proud to be Scottish or Welsh or Irish or something like that. But if you're proud to be English, you're racist. You're only allowed to be proud to be English during the women's football for some reason. So I think, why can't you have your identity and also be pro-Britain? But this is saying that that's very hard to maintain that position anymore.
Here we are with GB News pretty much put everywhere across this thing. Obviously, GB is what we're all about. That's all for part two. I just had to get
a bit of branding there, the idea.
I'm having like nightmares getting calls from the boss going, Great Britain doesn't exist.
Most of them will be about Lewis, to be fair.
Exactly. Right, that's all for part two. Come back for the much sillier third section, if that's at all possible, where we're going to look at arguably the most powerful power ballad of all time, fake PhDs, and the reason why I'm going to keep dyeing my hair. See you in two.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panelists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Stop squabbling. Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie. I'm joined by Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon over there.
We're friends.
Make friends. Okay, back with Saturday's Mirror. And maybe you don't have to go to university after all, Nick.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is former builder faked PhDs to snag top NHS chairman roles in staggering series of lies. So this is John Andrews, 63, and he faked his way into several top NHS jobs, including chairman of 2 different trusts, and it was all made up. He's now been fined £100,000, but he already made $1 million off the scam, although he was in jail for 2 years. A lot of people have questioned whether we have too much NHS middle management and what they really do. So proof is in now that they don't really do much. Good thing he didn't fake being a surgeon. That is all I can say. But yeah, it's a shocking story. I mean, he saw off 117 rivals for one of the roles, so he almost deserves it just for that. And then there's a bit here where they were going to confiscate his house, but he successfully appealed against it, presumably pretended to be a lawyer for that part.
Well, this reminds me.
There you go, a little joke.
You can. You have the Leonardo DiCaprio thing. So look, he basically got paid $1 million. He's paid back 96,000. It seems kind of worth it, really.
But he had to work, and he had to work
for 2 years.
For 10. He was doing it for 10
no,
years.
2 years in prison plus 10 years. Okay.
So, but I mean, he had to work, and he was working at the NHS, and it sounds like a hell job to me. So he maybe deserves the money. And I'm going to tell you something. From what I can tell, he actually was competent at his job. Did you hear this? Did you get the impression he was competent?
Well, yeah, he stayed, didn't he?
He stayed. He got bigger and better jobs.
Well, he seemed
And
competent.
so it's rather have someone who doesn't have the qualifications, who is competent, than someone who has qualifications and is in charge of COVID policy for the country.
You could say that. Can I just add one more sentence? It said here that Exeter Crown Court heard that for 10 years he had made significant progress at the hospice but had not actively done any damage. I mean...
It's very hard to judge exactly what the outcome is meant to be there. Saturday's Guardian, let's go to the one person who actually dyes their hair grey for this story, Lewis.
Yes, well, you know something. It's very easy, especially with men, it's very easy to go grey. You can go grey in an instant when you stop colouring your hair, and that's what happened to me. And but she says she's been fired. There's a woman.
Tell the story, yeah.
Okay, I'll tell the story. So there's a woman in Canada. Her name is Lisa Laflamme. Who knows how they pronounce things in Canada?
Laflamme.
And she's on Canadian TV, which is the state broadcaster. So they have to do things by the book. Whatever. She's been working for years. She's supposedly had a good job. It took place in Canada. No one gives a damn about Canada, especially Americans. Okay, but she was out for COVID and she came back. She'd let her hair go grey and she looked very attractive. 58 years old, perfect for Lewis Schaefer. And younger woman.
God. Bit of the Me Too movement's back.
Very, but she was attractive. I would go out.
You know what? I thought I'd done pretty bad earlier, but it's good to see you taking this step further.
Well, do you know what? I wouldn't go out with her now because she doesn't have a job, and I need a woman with a job because I'm not doing that well.
You need your rent paid, as we discussed.
Rent bill, 30%. Anyway, so she was fired because she supposedly let her hair go grey and she was now too old. But they never said she was too old. It was probably something else.
But her male peers, had all sort of stayed in those jobs until they're like 77 or whatever. I mean, do you think that society judges women harsher when they age, Nick?
Well, the interesting thing, can I just interrupt Nick?
Nick?
No, Nick. I'll come
Go on
back to you
then.
in a second.
Okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, look, is it just women? I don't know. She stopped dyeing her hair during lockdown. She thinks it was because of this, because a senior executive asked who let Lisa's hair go grey. We don't know for sure if it was because of this, but could well be. Okay. I wonder, I mean, ageism is the one thing that's accepted in general. The ultra-right on BBC, ultra-woke, they have all these comedians on there, and they try and get, they're obsessed with diversity. But comedians often point out the one they miss is age, and they always say, why can't club comedians like Jeff Innocent, who are very good, get on? And it's because they're old, and it's this weird thing, we won't allow older people on. Now, weirdly, in the US, that one tends to imagine would be more superficial, actually, they respect older comedians. They let people like Louis C.K. before the incident.
Stand-up takes decades.
Takes decades to get good at, so they respect these older comedians. And we don't have that here. So, yeah, I think there's a general ageism, especially on TV. I'm now worrying about dyeing my hair as we speak. Lewis looks very good.
I dyed my beard the other day.
Yeah, is it faded?
It's faded already.
Yeah, well, Lewis is very lucky. He just looks great with this look.
No,
he looks like a De Niro.
chisel.
Yeah.
No, I've got a gene.
The problem is everything he says, but that's we're working on it.
Right, Saturday's Telegraph, and I guess the power of music does trump everything, Nick.
Yeah, Janet Jackson hit a song that's so powerful it's crashing laptops. So Microsoft engineer Raymond Chen has said that 1989 hit Rhythm Nation crashes the hard drives of old laptops. Probably Michael wishes he'd thought of that, but that's satire. And it turns out it contains the natural resonant frequencies that match this old laptop, and it can even crash laptops next to you. So the music, I don't know if it's because it's so bad it crashes them, but I think it's more of a technical.
It could be that the laptops just have great taste. What do you think, Lewis?
Well, I think it's very funny. Natural resonant frequency. I don't think you could describe a computer as having natural anything, or a hard drive having natural anything. It's just.
Has it a computer, Lewis?
That's the part that annoyed you.
Great. The Guardian next, and. Did you get my WhatsApp message about this story, Lewis?
No, I did not, because I'm barely on WhatsApp. I'm a member of no groups, because it's just you get interrupted constantly. Anyway, what it says is, this is the Guardian, one of these super long pieces, page after page of ridiculous reading from the Guardian. It says that a lot of people are on WhatsApp. This is
that's pretty much it, is it? 10 pages to go, WhatsApp's popular.
And this is what they're using it for. They're using it to meet their friends. They're using it to talk to people in the old apartment house that they used to live in. It's like explaining to someone from another planet what WhatsApp is.
Now, Nick, are you fine not being on the Headliners WhatsApp group?
How dare you? How dare you? I am, actually, because you get in too many groups, you end up muting them all. They're so annoying. Like, I'm in a building WhatsApp group for my building. It's meant to be about bin maintenance. Turns into politics, like people's North London far-left politics. And someone then said they like Trump and they got banned. I'm in a five-a-side football group.
Talking about yourself?
Turns into left-wing politics. So all groups devolve into left-wing politics.
Did someone really get banned from your thing for saying they like Trump?
Do you know what happened? They said it's not a political group. No one's going to mention politics. While people were saying things like, this is a far-right Tory government.
Did you find where is he now your best friend in the
one person sent it like a pro-Trump thing, and they said, this isn't a political group, and they were so mean to them, they just left. They actually left in the end.
Did you ever figure out who it was? Did you ever go up to them?
Yeah, I think I sent them a message and said, I'm with you.
I'm in 58B.
No, I just sent them through WhatsApp. I just said I didn't agree with the way you were treated. It's terrible, because those people think their politics are just what everyone thinks. Yeah. A bit like the next story we're getting on to.
So you set up a group.
I didn't set it up.
You did. You set up a new group for people who run the old group who might have liked Trump.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I have
resentful far-right group. It's called.
Too many children, and I am on so many WhatsApp groups at their school. It just does my head in. I wake up in the morning. There's like 20 messages across all these different WhatsApp groups, and I'm desperate to leave.
Does each kid have their own?
Yeah, each class has, and now I've got double WhatsApp groups because when they changed school to secondary school, so I've still got the WhatsApp groups from primary school going on. It's hellish.
I didn't even know you had children. Yeah. That's getting you back for that joke you did on me.
Did you know that I'm bald and I'm Jewish as well?
Jewish?
Yeah,
I thought you were
crazy,
Hindu.
Right? This is from the Daily Mail, and I know your mum's watching this show, Nick. Would she agree with any of this?
No, my mum wouldn't be as silly as this. My mum's very, very sensible. And this is from the Daily Mail. How far would you go to save the planet? Mothers reveal what they'd do if they ruled the world, from a one-child policy to a ban on meat and air miles cap. But some claim it's an impractical communist nightmare. Correct. Inevitably, it's on Mumsnet. This article made me furious. There was this woman who got on there, and she was this mum, of course, and she was suggesting things like, not that mums are bad, I'm pro-mum, but she was suggesting things like one biological child per person. OK, Chinese Communist Party. She said she'd hit net zero targets much sooner. They're already absurdly soon and are destroying people and going to make people poor. But OK. She wants to make driving really difficult, having scant parking. She says things have got to move quickly now. This is an emergency. So she's bought into climate scaremongering. And she says that
this is Corbyn's wife.
Yeah, she's going to ban meat, dairy and fish. Who wants to ban fish? I've never even heard of that. And she wants to ban...
for her allotment, yeah?
She wants to ban any flight longer than 4 hours. And it says no children before 30 and no more than two children for families, someone else like... Which is like, our birth rates are too low anyway. So it's people, it's lefty, middle-class Karens who've bought into all this climate nonsense.
Karen. I think I always...
Well, we can use a different word, but I know what you mean. But look, it's so... Women are socialists. This is the thing. I sound like Lewis Schaefer. Women are socialist, OK? Because in America, they know it's with the voting patterns, women vote left-wing. This is the problem. And you know I'm a feminist, Josh, but I have to say this is why women shouldn't be allowed to vote.
I don't think that's actually true at all. I thought it was proved the other way around.
No, men tend to be libertarian. They want free speech and guns, and women want socialism because they want to be caring.
I read a big thing that actually women have got far more conservative over the last 100 years.
They have, but at the end of the day, women inherently are collectivists because they're group-oriented. They get safety in numbers, and they care about their social group more than men do.
And also, they want to fit in, as in Peterson would say, they're higher in agreeableness, so they want to fit in. And now we're in a left-wing sort of culture. They're going to be even more left-wing.
Well, Lewis, what is your avatar on Mumsnet? What's your call sign?
Let me think about it.
What would it be?
Elegant gentleman.
It would be like I don't even know. I would say it's something cool from New York.
Yeah, 911.
Probably
call this number for an emergency.
Probably Biggie Smalls.
Fine. The Guardian next, and maybe it's appropriate they're called Generation Z because they're making me fall asleep.
Nice.
Well, here's a story in The Guardian. Another one of these stories telling people exactly what they already know already is that young people don't want to go out, they don't drink as much, and they don't have as much fun, and they're way more cautious than we used to be, or even you guys used to be. You're another generation than I am. But at the end of the day, it says that the Generation Z, whatever, I guess this is this group, Z, sorry, claim that they drink less alcohol than their parents because they feel under pressure to perform academically or more health conscious and do not want to lose control. But basically what they're saying is, at least the men are saying they don't want to be Me Too'd.
I mean, your kids are about that age, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. My kids
are
they
sensible? I met them. They seem really lovely.
I think one of them is too sensible. The other one is just right. I shouldn't say that because
I think they'll be able to guess which one's which.
Good thing they don't watch. Basically, boomers ruined the world, didn't they? They were too selfish. They destroyed the world. And then millennials were woke, and I'm a geriatric millennial, so I take some responsibility. And Zoomers seem to be either super based and fun or just absolute disasters like the people described here.
Is that what we are?
It's a Zoomer, yeah. No, these ones are Zoomers. We don't even know what you are.
You're a boomer?
You're probably boomer, Lewis. Or you're the great generation, the greatest generation. You're that old. So it's you know, it says, look, I'm seeing a proportionate, this is a psychotherapist, I'm seeing a proportionate increase in referrals for social anxiety, professional anxiety, general self-confidence, relationship issues, because we pathologise everything. In the past, you just became a comedian. You were Lewis Schaefer. He's got all those problems, but he channels them into art.
I've been tested, and I've got all these problems. All these problems. I think
Mate, you didn't need to spend that money on the testing.
Me and Lewis both got 98% neuroticism in a test. That was shocking.
We're both shockingly neurotic.
This is from the Metro and Lewis. Have you ever taken a nap on stage?
Do you want to know something? I fell asleep a couple of weeks ago here.
On air?
No,
I wasn't hosting.
No, not here. At Free Speech Nation. I don't think nobody. I shouldn't say that. They're watching in the control room.
It's the same network.
Believe it or not, everybody is watching.
Andrew's producer of this show.
I fell asleep for a second.
On air or just backstage?
On air.
Oh,
on air.
Wow.
On air.
Did anyone notice?
Nobody, because I'm irrelevant. If I were famous, they would notice, but they don't notice. Louis Schaefer on Twitter.
I wonder what the story is, though.
Is that no? The story. Where's the story? Yeah, no story about that. No, the story is.
Did it involve trans people?
Well, they're transporting themselves. They are trans.
Yeah.
Is that a passenger plane pilots, 2 of them, who were flying the plane at 737,000 feet from Khartoum to Addis Ababa. I actually know where those places are because I'm very well educated. And they fell asleep in their cabin, just the 2 of them, and they fell asleep together, I guess. Yeah. And they flew for hours, minutes, around above the airport. And when they weren't responding after a while, the alarm went off and they woke up. And nothing happened. This is a nothing happened story.
No, this is a great story. I mean, pilots falling asleep, that's terrible.
They fell asleep and still landed. That is impressive. What disturbs me is it says...
They did wake up to land, by the way. It should be pointed out.
Yes. The pair was suffering from pilot fatigue, which is described as nothing new, which scared me a little bit. We were talking about Andrew Tate before. He controversially says his pilot has to be a man. My thing is they just have to be awake. That's my level.
Well, as I'm going on holiday tomorrow, I'm not going to be going to Ethiopian Airlines. Hopefully. And also, I've got, as you've heard, 5 kids, and they're going to be a little bit too noisy, so no one's getting any sleep on that flight.
Yeah.
Finally, from the Daily Star, and a murder on the beach was blown up out of proportion. Tell us more, Nick.
That's very clever, Josh, because it concerns a sex doll. Scared beachgoers call police over murdered woman, inverted commas, as sex doll washes up on sand. It was just a sex doll. Basically, what's happened is they've got so realistic that people now want to kill them. They're annoying them so much. They're like, can I kill this doll? And it's the next level. And it's a Japanese sex doll. It's washed up in Thailand. People thought it was real. But no, it was only a doll. Lewis.
That's quite a lot of money. Is it one of yours, Lewis?
How much was yours?
Well, do you wonder something? Why would you need a silicone sex doll in Thailand? The whole point of Thailand...
It can't pay your mortgage. It can't pay your rent, right?
So well, you think you can get something even cheaper than a silicone set? From what I know about Thailand.
Outrageous.
Oh,
yes.
My gosh, I think you're talking
all
about...
due respect for Thailand, it's probably not true. But it has a reputation for having,
Yeah, I got it.
That's why you holiday there every year, isn't it?
You know, it's the weather. It's the weather.
But I understand that, I mean, Japan is the centre of these... I mean, and with Japan's lowering birth rate, these sex dolls, I'm wondering if it does get to a point, because we had a story yesterday about Japanese government is trying to make their youth drink alcohol, and part of that could be so they just unwind a little bit and maybe actually start
loosening up.
I mean, I'm wondering if when we get down the road where these dolls get more lifelike and whatnot, if actually countries maybe even start banning them because it's going to be affecting their birth rate.
Well, don't kid yourself. I mean, they're banning pornography. They're banning abortion. These are all things that are related to birth rate because, as what's his name said, as Jordan Peterson says, we're going into a death spiral of lower population growth.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you?
Because very few people are having 5 children.
Well, I'm doing my bit.
You have done your bit.
Thank you.
No, you're right. Japan were kind of ahead of the incel movement in a way. They had a movement. I can't remember the name of it, but
the herbivore.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were all... There was a problem. They didn't have enough money to get married. They didn't see the point. Men were sort of giving up. And, this is it's a big problem across a lot of countries. And there's, financial reasons we've discussed. Marriage isn't worth it anymore. Divorce rates are very high. Yeah. There's custody issues. So, men are giving up and, probably getting sex dolls. And what about when we get AI, virtual reality porn? That's what I'm really worried about, for Lewis's sake, mainly.
Right.
But
because he won't be on the show again.
That's happening anay.
Yeah, fine.
But
Mr. Great Britain doesn't exist on GBNews.
Yeah. Explaining what 999 is. But it's funny.
But no, we've had a few of these stories just today, which they're all tied together, is that, people are not having children. They're staying in their own little apartments, which is costing way more money. The whole thing is related to this same thing. It has to do with women.
Exactly. And you've got those mums net women saying don't have children because of the climate, and that's a misperception, because Elon Musk, one of the smartest guys in the world, says we're too low on children, our birth rates are too low, we need to have more children. You've done it, Josh. I approve of it from afar. So I'm glad you've done that.
A round of applause
for
Josh.
When you bump into me in the supermarket, you always sort of see how haggard I am.
Yeah.
But children just...
It's funny because I find this thing all the time. I even wrote an article about it. You can check it out in the Daily Skeptic. There's like lefties sort of in North London and stuff where I live, and I would disagree with them on everything, but they're acting more conservative than me. They're doing all the right things. I'm saying the right things.
Okay, well,
while acting
I walk
wrong.
the walk. Right, well, that is all we have time for. Thank you to my brilliant guests, Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon. I'm off on holiday for 2 weeks. I'm hoping that no one breaks anything whilst I'm away. Good night.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan Tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate, and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for big guests, big opinions, and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panelists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.